Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I start by declaring that I am a Northern Area Committee member of the Highland Reserve Forces and Cadets Association, and in that role I'm very happy to support reservists, many of whom, of course, are former servicemen. And indeed, I note James Dornan's reference to the cadets, who play a very valuable role, often again, through the leadership of former service personnel in contributing to young people right across Scotland, right across the UK. The Highland RFCA is covering about a quarter of the landmass of the United Kingdom, extending north from the Forth Clyde Valley to encompass the whole of the Scottish Highlands and Islands. Now, earlier this week, on Tuesday, I had the privilege to meet the Defence Medical Welfare Service that Brian Whittle referred to, a fantastic organisation which since 1943 has given support to more than 1 million patients and their families. And I was greatly impressed by the work that's been done by that organisation and by many others. And it was a privilege to hear many of the stories on Tuesday. Now, the backdrop to this, of course, is well illustrated when in May 1915, Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae wrote the poem In Flanders Fields after witnessing the death of a friend the day before. We are the dead. Short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now lie in Flanders Fields. That illustrates the experience of service personnel, and it should be no surprise that that experience can lead to needs after they've served in the forces that we address today and have to address for a long time. That poem has echoed down the ages, the 100+ years since it was written, is the inspiration why we wear the little red poppy on Armistice Day. And of course, as I referred to in my intervention on the Minister, we approach the 100-year anniversary of the armistice, not the end of the conflict, but the armistice, and we should celebrate that. We've seen many memorial services and preparations to honour those who fought in that great conflict and the very great sacrifices that they made. I've been fortunate in my life to have travelled to many corners of the world, and in many of them one sees the imperial war graves that there are. When I was in Burma some 40 years ago, the only thing that seemed to work effectively in Burma was the graveyard outside Rangoon, where every blade of grass was within a millimetre of its neighbour, where the Book of Remembrance was absolutely pristine, and the memorial there was excellent. Nothing else in that country worked properly. So it was great to see that dedication. In my own constituency, a week ago, we saw the community come together for the rededication of a memorial marking the commencement of the war. Bands played, prayers were given, scriptures and poems recited, including the poem I've just quoted. And the Lord Lieutenant of Banffshire, Claire Russell, said, "The dedication will in no way glorify war or mark any kind of celebration of what was one of the darkest moments in the history of mankind. Rather, it's an occasion for people to remember and to work for peace." So that was a truly intergenerational tribute as members of the Royal British Legion stood alongside uniformed youth organisations. And that happened right across Scotland, indicating the respect and regard that we have for our veterans. I'm proud that we in Scotland have taken the steps we are. I think other nations in these islands equally respect our veterans. They do so in different ways and support them in different ways. I think there's a little bit could be learned from the way we do it. Gordon MacDonald referred to the Scottish Veterans Fund. This past year, for example, that has supported some 19 projects and continues to be an important support that's provided to veterans. Now, the motion before us and many of the contributions referred to Eric Fraser as the Veterans Commissioner and Colonel Charlie Wallace, who will be our new Veterans Commissioner. Well, that's an important role. with something like 400,000 veterans who have served in our armed forces for some point in their lives. That's important. And 20,000 people across the UK leave our armed forces every year. And the transition to civilian life can be difficult for some people. There are over 50 veterans organisations. That's part of the 300 plus that Maurice Corrie referred to as charities in Scotland. Poppy Scotland is well known to us. Veterans First Point would be another. These organisations, doing their own thing, working often with the Scottish Government, are integral to what we do. I want to just look at what the Scottish Veterans Commissioner said in his report. He described testimony from John Johnson, a veteran and research project officer at Borders General Hospital, who was helped by Veterans First Point. John states, the whole ethos of Veterans First Point is they go the extra mile for everyone who accesses the service. They help me get out of the house and meet like-minded people, which is ultimately the reason I'm here today. The
member's just closing.
Even if you finish treatment or completed a programme, never closes its door to you. My personal connections are modest. My father did know Lloyd George, James Dornan, and was his election agent when he stood for the rectorialship of Edinburgh University, and his cousin was in Lloyd George's government during the First War, and was ennobled by Ramsay MacDonald in the 1920s. Presiding officer, thank you.